next thing that I'm going to do over here is after I selected my geometry and assign a modeling material to it, I'm going to rotate it 90 degrees to actually work with that button with this geometry that I have on this side. So I'm gonna go to this view, which is going to be better. And what I want to do here is select an orientation of 90 degrees, so the whole thing is rotated 90 degrees. Also, I know that I have a lot of geometry here. Notice that my count for faces is 400 at this point. I can easily reduce that if I just say the polysphere is going to be made out of 16 subdivisions. I want to work with subdivisions multiple of 4 because that is going to help me maintain quads as much as possible. So the next thing that I need to take in account is that there is this line going on around the object. So if I select this edge and I scale it down, notice how the deformation is going to happen with all of these lines. So I really need to maintain this border here as much as possible. The best solution that I have come up with in here is to actually rotate these 12.25 degrees. It's actually 11.25 degrees. And then you might be wondering, why is this number here? Well, if I bring my calculator in, I know that I'm gonna have 360 in a circle, and then I'm gonna be dividing these by the number of subdivisions, which I have 16. But I'm gonna have to rotate half of this rotation, so divide that by half once again, and that is going to be my 11.25, which is the angle that I have in this case. So this is just how much precision I can put into Maya. In most cases, I might just eyeball the solution. That could be fine, but right now I'm going for a little bit more precision here. So at that point, one thing that is going to be really crucial for the rest of this is going to be thinking how I can just make how to work less, essentially. So one thing that I want to do here is, first of all, get rid of these numbers, because this information, this transform information, is just going to keep on appending and appending and appending. The same goes with the history of my object. So for deleting the history, which at this point is not that much, if I say start creating some loops and adding some geometry, something like that, when I select my shape once again, that is just going to keep on appending. So I'm gonna undo a couple of times, and remember, I want to maintain a selection of triangles most of the time. Now, the reason why we're working with quads and not triangles is because it's going to be easy to select. See, if I select this and then hold shift and click on the next one, that is just going to let me keep on going one by one. In this case, I have 16 of them, right? Because that's the subdivision that I decided to go with. But if I select one, shift and double click on the next one, that is going to go all around my shape. At the end of the day, it is true that we send everything to the graphics card as triangles, but modeling with triangle is really a pain. If I try to do the same selection in this area, see, I cannot double click because Maya doesn't know where I should be stopping. So if I go around here, that is going to do the selection all around, and it's going to stop in the triangle. It's not going to continue here because it doesn't really know which is going to be the opposite triangle. We can pretty easily see that this is the continuation of this selection, probably, but Maya is not sure. So instead of just guessing, it's just going to stop. So see, the same happened here and here. Now, if my whole shape was made out of triangles, if I go to my mesh triangulate, that is going to prevent me any engons on my shape, but now it's impossible to work with. See, I cannot do a selection that is going to go all the way around. So working with triangles is pretty general, a terrible idea to begin with. So I'm going to undo a couple of times. So I go back to this shape. So at this point, the two things that I need to do is deleting my history and freezing my transformations. The first one is achieved by going to edit and then delete by type history. And the next one is going to be going to modify and freeze transformations. Notice that these guys here are gone. Like the scale has to be ones, but everything else is zeros. And then the history of the shape is just shape one. In this case, I usually just do the shortcut for deleting the history. So let's say that I extrude a face, Control E, just put it over here. If I say Alt Shift and D, that is gonna get rid of that. Okay, so I'm gonna undo that. I'm gonna go back to the shape. And this is how I delete the history of my object. See, I still see an extrusion here, which is bad, so I'm gonna maintain that clean geometry. Went back a couple of steps, and this is where I am. So the transformations are frozen, the history is clean, and then I can proceed to work with the model. Now, I don't know about you, but I'm all about trying to save some time in the process. So what I want to do is, as the Pokeball is perfectly symmetrical from this side to this side, what I want to do is just duplicate all of the effort that I'm doing on the top. So there's two ways to achieve that. Once I can select these and say use the reflection on the y-axis. So if I select a vertex here and I modify it, that is going to modify the vertex down here. If I grab a bunch of these ones and move them around, then the other ones are going to get reflected. That's a way of doing it. Sometimes my object is not going to be perfectly symmetrical though. And at that point, I can actually try to work with the object and, the world projection, which is going to have the same effect on this Pokeball just because the way that this is created. But let's say that I had some sort of Mickey Mouse shape, right? Then the selection is going to work only in local space for the z-axis, because I'm going to be mirroring based on this axis here. So that's what this actually means. So I'm going to be taking this one out, and I'm going to show you the other way that we can create this geometry. So what I'm going to do here is I will go to my mesh tools, and I'm going to insert a new edge loop. Now, edge loops are really neat. Let me reset this thing. If I click on one edge, that is just going to continue my cut. See, I can have cuts here or here or here. And it's going to try to maintain quads as much as possible. But one really neat thing that I can do with edges is to actually use equal distance, and say in this case I have 2. So it's going to have, go back a couple of steps, and mesh tools, insert edge loop, and I can just have one equal distance from the edges, but I want to have multiple edge loops, like say 2. That is just going to make even cuts, and it's just going to divide my shape in 3. What I want though is to divide my shape in only 2, so I need a single cut in the center, and I can do that really easily if I go over here. The issue that I have is that, again, this is going to try to maintain quads as much as possible, so this one here is a quad already. What I need to do is select now my multi-cut tool, which is also under mesh tools multi-cut, and I want to go from this vertex to the center to this vertex. I'm going to hit enter. Now if you're ahead of me, you will notice that this is not entirely going all the way around because I just did it on the front side, and then my Pokeball is actually sort of in my way right now, so I want to take this and hide it. So the next thing that I'm going to do is I'm going to do this one, and that's why working with layers is so important, so I can get I get to hide stuff that is in my way. All right, so once I have that, I'm going to go to this view, and what I will do is just select by faces half of the model, which is basically going to be this down part. So I'm gonna take a look at here in the perspective view, and I'm gonna double check what is going on. So everything is fine. And the reason I want to work with this is so I can make an instance of the top part. So I'm gonna go to my edit. I'm going to go to my duplicate special options, and what I want to is figure out a way that I can mirror the geometry from the top to the bottom. I'm gonna reset the settings to the default ones, and here usually what you want to do is scale negatively on one of the axes. So if I scale on the x-axis, that is going to copy everything from the left to the right and vice versa. If I select this one on the y, that is going to select everything from the top and assign it to the bottom, which is the one that I want in this case. So the last one is going to be the z-axis. If I scale negatively here, is going to mirror everything that is in the front to the back and the back in the front. So I want to work with this -1. Now I can work with a copy or an instance, and the difference between the two of them is if I work with a copy, see how I copy this one. If I select a vertex, as I did before, and I move it up, that is not going to affect the bottom one. What I want is to work with an instance and not a copy. So if I work with an instance and I apply it, when I select a vertex and move it around, a vertex and move it up, that is going to affect the bottom part. The difference between these and mirroring is that I can actually move this in a different place if I need to, and that is still going to maintain that history. So if I select, let's say, this edge and move it up, that is going to affect the bottom one, but it doesn't need to be, you don't need to be working on sort of a perfect mirror of any sorts. So that is a neat thing that I can do here, and that's what I'm going to be applying in the following video. Right now I just want to leave it here. Want to keep this video short, just to the point. All right, so I'm going to be seeing you in the next one.